Hi, we're going to present our third evidence of human body care. The group is made up of Valeria Jimenez Zárate, Dana Fernanda González León, Aime Prieto Medrano, and me, Isabel González. In this evidence, we're going to look at the female reproductive system, the hormones that help regulate it, the uterine and ovarian cycle, and anti-contraceptives for men and women.
Female reproductive system is divided in internal and external genitalia depending on the localization of each organ. For external genitalia, we first have the vulva, which is the covering of the vaginal opening and other internal organs. And then we have the mons pubis, which is a fleshy bit of skin between the legs just above the vaginal opening. Then we have two flaps of skin called labia, and it can be studied as labia majora and labia minora. And these cover the openings of the urethra and the vagina. Where they meet, these flaps meet, we have the clitoris, which is a small sensory organ, and just beneath it we have the opening of the urethra, which is the canal that connects the bladder to the outside of the body and thus allows women to pee. Beneath it we have the opening of the vagina, which is the very first internal organ. The vagina is a hollow muscular tube with mucus-lined walls. This is because it can contract or expand depending on what it needs to accommodate. It can accommodate either something as large as a baby's head or something as thin or slim as a menstrual cup. The vagina serves three main purposes, which are a pathway for sexual intercourse, a canal for labor, and also a release path for menstrual discharge. Then the vagina connects its opening to the uterus, but the part that marks the difference between one and another is the cervix, which is a very, very narrow opening that can only be widened by a baby's head, basically. So it has very thick walls. The walls are as thick as the ones of the uterus, which are also very muscular. There are in fact some of the strongest muscles in the entire female body. And the uterus is an upside down pear-shaped organ that is lined by the endometrium, which is where implantation happens. So when an egg is fertilized, it will adhere to this lining and develop there throughout the entirety of pregnancy until the body and the baby are prepared for birth. Then connecting to the uterus and the ovaries, we have the fallopian tubes. This is where fertilization happens. So fallopian tubes have sort of frayed looking ends that are attached to the ovaries, though they don't fully grasp them. And when ovaries, which are organs that are part of the endocrine system because they also produce hormones like estrogen, they produce, store, and release eggs. The oocytes or the eggs are released into the fallopian tube. The fallopian tubes are lined by very thin felt-like hairs that push the egg towards the uterus where implantation happens. But implantation only happens if the egg is met by a sperm in the fallopian tube. So the sperm fertilizes the egg, and that's when the egg gets to the uterus and implantation happens, and then eventually birth.
Hormonal regulation of the female reproductive system. The pituitary gland, often referred to as the master gland, controls the activity of all hormone-secreting glands. When it comes to the menstrual cycle, this gland is responsible for the release of FSH and LH, and decreasing levels of LH. The hypothalamus gland, it releases hormones and regulates body temperature. When it comes to the menstrual cycle, this gland is responsible for the regulation of GnRH. Ovarian cycle. Chain of changes in the ovary where the follicle matures, the ovum is shed, and the corpus luteum develops. This happens in three different stages. Number 1. Follicular phase. Development of the follicle because of the FSH. Mature oocyte is released in the fallopian tubes. Number 2. Luteal phase. Corpus luteum grows in the ovaries and releases progesterone that tells the endometrium that it is ready for implantation. Number 3. This can either happen A or B. A. When implantation occurs, the corpus luteum will be kept. B. When implantation doesn't occur, corpus luteum will be discharged. Menstruation. Uterine cycle. Preparation of the endometrium for implantation. consists of the proliferative and secretory phase and menstruation. Number 1. Proliferative phase. Lasts about 14 days. Changes in the endometrium and development of the ovarian follicles. Number 2. Secretory phase. Lasts about 14 days. Preparation for implantation. Number 3. Menstruation. 2 to 7 days. Discharge of tissue from the inner lining of the uterus. From what I can tell, the ovarian cycle affects the uterine cycle because it is all the hormones and changes that need to happen in order for the uterine cycle to exist.
Contraceptive methods are a way to prevent pregnancy and, in some cases, sexually transmitted diseases as well. There are 4 different types: barrier, hormonal, permanent, and natural contraceptive methods. Today, I'm going to speak to you only about a few of them, and they are feminine. First, we have the condom, which is a barrier contraceptive method. It has an 80% efficiency, and it has to be used in every sexual relationship. In hormonal contraceptive methods, there's the pill, which has to be taken for 21 days and then rested 7, and then the cycle will repeat. It has to be also taken under medical prescription. Then we also have the day after pill, which has to be taken in the first 72 hours after sex. And there's also the contraceptive patch, which has to be changed every 3 weeks. They all have an efficiency of 91%, and neither of them stop or prevent sexually transmitted diseases. In permanent contraceptives, there is the Uterine device, which is also called IUD, and has a efficiency of 99%. This device has to be placed by a specialist. This method can last for 3 to 10 years. Remember that every contraceptive method works different in every person, so be careful and ask your doctor which one is better for you.
A good example of male preservative is the condom, which is the most famous preservative used by men. It is used as a prophylactic because it also prevents possible sexual transmission infections. Also works to avoid unwanted pregnancy. This male condom is often made of latex that covers the entire penis. There are different colors, sizes, textures, and tastes. Another famous male birth control method, which lasts 13 years, involves injecting a polymer, which blocks sperm from leaving the testicles. The shot, preceded by a dose of local anesthesia, is designed to supplant a traditional vasectomy. It has 96% of efficacy. It has a lot of users around the world. It is a really famous male birth control method.